Hi everyone, welcome to another video on Path of Exile 2. In this video, I'll be going over the upcoming changes and improvements as per the latest dev post on Path of Exiles 2. So we're just going to read through it, and I pride myself on just getting you guys the info, no, extra information or wasting your time. So let's get into it. Path of Exile 2 has been live for just over a week. We've addressed some feedback already and are working on more fixes for key pain points in an upcoming patch. Full patch notes are coming soon, but check out some of the more significant changes below. Start with the gameplay features. Like we mentioned last week, we'll be adding the capacity to fast travel between checkpoints within an area, as well as adding many more checkpoints to areas, generally at all the entrances and exits to areas. Meaning, if you find these first, you'll be able to instantly travel to continue. Instantly be able to travel. You'll be able to instantly travel to them to continue exploring. We'll also be making passive point respecking cheaper, especially at higher levels. It had a relatively high aggressive curve, getting more expensive with each character level. We have flattened that curve so it doesn't exponentially grow as much. This should generally result in approximately 40 to 50% less gold cost for respecking between the start and middle of endgame progression. The Trial of Sekhemas. Players were finding the Trial of Sekhemas particularly frustrating in close range, so we've reworked how honor damage rescales when in close range. I do agree with this because as a monk I had to hit the boss close up, and every time he'd use his little stunner, and this is on the first trial by the way, I would take damage because you can't get out of there fast enough. As well as fixing an important bug that was causing players to take far too much honor damage from damage over time. Honor damage now scales down based on distance to enemies. When in close range, you'll take 35% less honor damage, tapering off as you are further away from monsters. Fixed a bug where damage over time was dealing thrice as much damage to honor as intended, and fixed a bug where honor resistance was only applying to 2/3 of that damage. That was confusing for us too. That's kind of weird. So it only applied to 2/3, but then did 3 times as much, so did no mitigation whatsoever. Skitter golems no longer use basic attacks and instead now just explode. Serpent Clan's burrow and ambush attack now has been improved visual telegraphing and cannot be used from as far away. Volcanoes created by Rattle Cage's Fissure Slam now last half the duration. Now on to the endgame and monster balance. Generally, the balance in endgame maps was more punishing than intended, so we've toned down the damage in a number of ways and disabled a certain on-death effect when the telegraphing was not as clear as it should have been. Maps no longer have additional elemental resistance penalties inherently applied at tier 6 and tier 11 or higher maps. It is now consistent across all of the endgame. Chaos damage now only scales less aggressively over the endgame. Or now also scales less aggressively over the endgame. Critical strikes from monsters now deal 40% less bonus damage. Lowered the baseline monster density of breach encounters, primarily by reducing the frequency of the elite monsters appearing. Disabled the volatile crystal modifiers. We'll revisit this in the future pending telegraphing movements or improvements. Purple explosives created by the volatile plants modifier on rare monsters now deal significantly less damage. This one, I cannot explain to you how many times I've died to this crap, because you forget how much damage they deal. The Siphoning Flask charges modifier on monsters now drains 10 times less flask charges per second. This was unintentionally draining way too many charges. These changes should generally result in an endgame that is much more survivable than before, and we will continue to address problematic cases as they arise. Now on to character and item balance. We made charm modifiers on belts substantially more common and now appear at much lower levels. The of symbolism modifier now appears from level 23 onward, and the of inscription modifier now appears from level 64 onward. Electrocute is now 25% harder to build up, but the damage penalty has been removed from the support gem. Added a new lightning damage and electrocute cluster to the passive tree in between the ranger and monk sections. Lightning damage and electrocute. Interesting. So maybe lightning damage monk might be a good way to go. Right now I'm going ice. It is now more difficult to chain freeze enemies by reducing the amount of freeze buildup applied after freeze has been applied. It is now more difficult to chain freeze enemies by reducing the amount of freeze buildup applied after a freeze. Okay, so you can only freeze them once or twice versus like for the elites, I guess. The Hunter's Talisman notable now grants +1 charm slot. The small passive skills leading up to it now grant the stat it formerly gave. The Charm Helper text has been updated to indicate that you cannot have more than 3 charm slots unlocked, so that we can add more sources of it in the future. Skill and support gem balance. Since launch, we've unfortunately had to nerf a few skills that were far too overpowered. How do we define overpowered? Basically, it's a situation in which a certain skill is so powerful that players feel no other method of playing the game is viable. Generally speaking, we are trying to do this in a way that doesn't make a build bad, but we can make mistakes. Ideally, any truly meta shifting changes only happen at the same time as a content patch with a new league to play in. But that doesn't mean we haven't been looking at underpowered skills and support gems. We've got a number of changes planned which should improve some of these skills. The full list of changes will be in the patch notes, but here's a sample of what you can expect. Improvements to Rolling Slam and all shield skills in the mace section. Improvements to various bow skills, especially the skills used to generate frenzy charges. Improvements to bone spells and chaos damage over time spells in the occult section. Improvements to various crossbow skills, especially at those higher tiers. Improvements to some of the underachieving quarterstaff abilities. Interesting. This one is very interesting to me because I'm playing monk. I wonder what they're going to change. So the underachieving might be things like lightning is doing pretty well, I would think. Lightning's not too bad. What would be doing bad right now? Why don't you guys tell me in the comment section below if you play monks, which quarterstaff abilities you think are doing poorly. And yeah, feel free to mention anything or your viewpoints on these changes as well, actually. Alongside all of these skill gem improvements, we've also done a pass over the support gems. We've added 2 new supports and removed or lessened the penalties of many others, notably the fire, lightning, and cold exposure supports. Had to cough there. Added the Tremor support gem, which can be used to give up to multiple more aftershocks to skills with a damage penalty. Added the Bidding support gem, which can be used to give more damage to the command skills of supported minions. The fire exposure, lightning exposure, and cold exposure support gems no longer penalize damage of supported skills. They now have a mana cost multiplier of 120%. Interesting. There are also some notable nerfs to a few of the remaining overachieving skills. Skeletal Arsonist Spirits costs now match the other 2 skeleton mages. This should result in a slight decrease in the number of arsonists at a higher level. A nerf to damage over time component on very high levels of Tornado and Vine Arrow. These were never intended to be dealing damage themselves, but more so acted as a way for other skills to propagate damage. Magnetic Salvo can now only use your stuck lightning arrows as opposed to those created by your party members. As we wind down for the holiday season, we wanted to thank you all for our most successful launch so far. We could not have done it without all of your support. A lot of our team will begin to take some much needed rest over the next few weeks, but we look forward to getting back in the new year, refreshed and ready for an exciting year of development in 2025. Happy holidays, Exiles. So now I'm going to get into, my take on stuff because I read through all the patch notes. So you can stop watching the video here or stop listening if you are so inclined. Basically, they've addressed a lot of the pain points of the community, it sounds like. I know people were complaining about the change to the mages or the sorceress, where they nerfed it too much with the trigger abilities, with the comets and so on. I haven't played a sorceress, so I'm not too familiar with the build, but I saw a lot of forum posts and a lot of Reddit posts just complaining about it. So I guess that's what prompted this more in-depth response about what they're actually doing, so they can let people know, we're actually working on this stuff, guys. We're not just doing it willy-nilly where we just nerf a build into the ground and then not talk about it at all. And if my voice is sounding raspy, it's because I'm still a little sick. For the endgame and monster balance, it sounds like they've done a lot there. And I should improve endgame. I haven't gotten there. Obviously, I'm still in Act 3. But it looks like that's going to be pretty good. Character and item balance. So they've added more support gem or charm modifiers on belts. which should be good. So that's good. And skill and support gem balance. I'm looking forward to this section the most. Mainly because I think this is where the meat of the stuff is going to be for most builds and most players. Because as they nerf and change the skill and support gem balance, it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, other than that, that's the notes, patch notes, or not patch notes, rather, upcoming changes and improvements from the dev team at GTG for Path of Exile 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and girls, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, helps me out a lot, and be on the lookout for more PoE2 content on the channel, because that's what I'm going to be covering for the foreseeable future, because this game is just so in-depth. I wish I'd gotten into PoE earlier, so I could have learned it better. But I'm learning with you guys on PoE too, and I'll be sharing whatever I learn in videos, and giving you updates whenever I see them. And I know I'm not going to be the first to give you these updates, but hopefully I'm providing a different take, and just giving you the simple feedback and not telling you what to think, so you can think what you want to think. That's it for me. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and I'll see you in the next one.